Well, I know that some of us are going to be watching caucuses tonight. Watching? Or can you actually watch them?
You don't want to watch.
You don't want to watch them.
You just got to watch the talking.
So I thought I'd jump right in. I know the rain might keep a few people away, but we are recording this session. I want you to know. So that's why I have this cordless mic in this tiny room. But we're really excited to have our Applebaum Editors and Publishers Program focus on campus journalism. I think it's really important. It's an important position to be in. It's a big deal. Your campus papers are in an interesting situation at universities because you're a student, but you're also independent. At least for some campus papers, I think we'll be interested to hear what each of the campus papers, how they relate to their campuses. And we have a really great selection of people here tonight representing different kinds of papers. We have Lauren FEINER of the Daily Pennsylvanian. Lauren's here. Hello, Lauren. We have Anna MAZARAKIS from the Daily Princetonian. Is it Daily? It's Daily, the Daily Princetonian. We have Justin ROCZNIAK from the Triangle.
Oh, out of town people. Oh no, you're in town.
This is Drexel.
Yeah,
We're Drexel. And we have SHANNON SWEENEY from the Daily Collegian. So she actually drove here from Penn State. So I think we have a real range of kinds of papers. We're interested in, I think, getting questions from the audience. But to lead the first part of the conversation, I don't think we could do this in a more perfect way. We have DICK POLMAN here, who teaches reporting and journalism at Penn, and he is himself a long-time veteran of papers. Long time. He's seen a lot of changes, but he's also seen the beginnings. He was himself a college editor. And there is a reception afterward. I know he can only stay a minute, but you should talk him into showing you his campus ID badge. And I've revealed that it's out there. It's pretty amazing. But so I think he's a really good person to help guide this conversation from the beginning, as he's been around. So please help me welcome this panel and college campus journalism to Penn.
Well, thanks, Jessica. My job is to be brief. So I'm just going to be brief. I'm just going to say that I was pleased to be asked to do this because my college newspaper experience was central to my college experience, and I spent most of my waking hours there and learned most of what I know, at least the root of what I know, as a campus editor. Many years ago, so long ago that the Vietnam War had not actually ended yet. Okay, so that's how long ago we're talking. But our panel has been introduced. What I'd like to do basically is just ask everybody, and just to keep opening statements brief, 5 minutes or less, so we'll have as much time for crosstalk and questions, and just talk a little bit about your papers. And I was interested if you could just hit a couple points that I listed here. How often a week you come out? What is your print circulation vis-a-vis online metrics, whatever you think they are? And are you independent from the university or a creature totally thereof? So we can start with Justin.
Oh, boy. All right. I'm Justin. I run the Triangle at Drexel University. Drexel University is the industrial park over by 30th Street Station. A little bit about the Triangle. We were founded in 1926. That's 35 years after the university was founded. We are, full list of what we get from the university. We get a room, we get electricity, we get water, we don't use that. We get an internet connection. We get diesel, more on that later, probably. And we get banking, though not by choice. Other than that, fully independent from the university. What else did you mention that I was supposed to go over? Our notable alumni, we have one. It's Chuck Barris, host of The Gong Show.
Print circulation? You have
Print circulation. We distribute 3,000 issues each week. I've done it personally. We online views. Oh, God. Jeremy, you should know this.
I don't use online. We get online print.
I think it's like 30,000 views a month or so, offhand. And I think we print weekly. I'm the only person here whose paper doesn't have the word daily in it, so I guess I'll talk for 1/7 the amount of time as everyone else, whatever.
Lauren.
Hi. So at the Daily Pennsylvanian, we have 5 nights of production a week with 4 print issues a week. It used to be 5, and then we cut Friday issues. But we still have production on Thursday nights to put content online for the weekend. And we also produce content throughout the weekend with breaking news, events that are happening, especially sports. Our print circulation, we print about 7,000 issues a day. Colin, could you help me out with the online metrics?
Per day?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what we do in terms of numbers. We're probably, what, per day? Probably get like 10,000 views a day. Something like that.
Roughly 10,000 a day, probably.
I think your brochure says 30,000. I read it. Sure, it's the advertisers to know, though.
Yeah, the advertisers want to hear that.
Yeah. And we are fully independent from the university.
I'm
Shannon?
Shannon. I'm from Penn State's Daily Collegian. We print 5 days a week. Our circulation during the week is anywhere between 4,000 and 5,000. Fridays are our best day, usually between 5,000 and 6,000. Per day, we usually have around 30,000 website views. If it's a good day, some days are slower, it's 20,000. And if it's a football weekend, it's usually upwards to 50,000 views, depending on how good the game is. We've been on Penn State's campus for 129 years this year, really focusing on an online presence, so really focusing on the page views there.
Yeah. Are you independent of the university?
Yes, we're completely independent. We rent from Penn State, and the rent's pretty ridiculous, but besides that, we're completely
Yeah, that's the same for us.
really high from Penn State. But besides that, we're completely independent.
Anna?
I'm Anna. I think it's appropriate that I'm sitting kind of off to the side of the table because yesterday was actually the first day that I was no longer editor-in-chief of the Daily Princetonian. So I'm speaking from my experience of the past year. The Daily Princetonian is completely independent from the university, except we do pay rent. Ours is actually ridiculously low, but we're completely independent. We have a board of trustees that we report to, and they manage our money or help to manage our money with our business manager. We print 2,000 papers every day, Monday through Friday, and we usually get about 12,000 to 15,000 page views on an average day, sometimes 20 if it's something that's really interesting is happening on campus. And what else was I supposed to say? I think that was it.
That's probably it.
Okay.
Well, all right. So one of the reasons I was asking, obviously, about print versus page views, I was doing some reading some stories this afternoon, and this is just a few examples from around the nation of how things are changing. University of Houston has something called the Daily Cougar, which is no longer daily. They went from daily to once a week just not long ago, making a big shift to online. Ohio University has something called the Post. They're planning not to be daily anymore, going up just once a week on Thursdays, shifting to online. Ohio State, the Lantern, went from 5 days a week to twice a week a couple of years ago. Now they're trying to go back up to 3. My alum is the George Washington University, the badly named George Washington University Hatchet. Really bad name, you know. Every time we had a story that people didn't like, people would say, "Oh, what a hatchet job that was." But it's because of George Washington and the cherry tree. So the Hatchet, when I was the editor of it, was twice a week, and now they're back. Now they're once a week, and making a much more commitment toward online. So my question is, I wanted to find out from everybody to what extent in the last couple of years, and I hate to use this word, but I'm sure everybody has experiences with this. Have your papers been increasingly rebranding online? What new things are you trying to do online? Because that's where the readers are going.
Okay, I started my editor-in-chief term with a speech like, look, online is looking like increasingly more and more financially stable. I was talking about how to gracefully shut down the print edition of the newspaper. That was a year and a half ago or so. What actually ended up happening was we doubled down on the print edition, and we got some good people in sales, and we started making money again. So there's no sort of no chance at the moment of us going out of print anytime soon. So in terms of online, I would say, what have we been doing online?
We redesigned the website.
That was about the balance of it, yeah.
More feature articles.
And yeah, we got the feature columns. Like it's that, we still make that.
I mean, you want to offer stuff that's not, doesn't really fit with the print product, right?
Yeah.
You want to take advantage of it.
Snowball thing.
Snowball's up and running.
What's Snowball?
We just transitioned over to Snowball completely. Actually, all of our long forms are.
What's Snowball?
It's a WordPress plugin that you can create long forms on. If you're an editor, you don't have to code every article individually.
So I mentioned before that we used to have 5 issues a week in print. Now we have 4. So that decision was made about 2 years ago now. We don't print on Fridays, and the goal of that was to focus more online, have a night where we're solely doing production for content that's not going to go into print. And that's had its ups and downs, but in general, we're trying to push more online exclusive content, things that really live better and can only live online. So multimedia stuff like videos and interactive graphics. This year we're really trying to get our production editors to focus on reporting through visuals in a way that can be presented in a visual form. So those are the types of things that we're trying to put out online. We're also undergoing a website redesign right now. But yeah, I mean, in general, we still, the majority of our revenue comes from print, like most newspapers. So it's still kind of a balance figuring out what is the next step.
Yeah, at the Daily Collegian, we're trying to figure out how to monetize online as well. But in the past year, when I became editor-in-chief, I implemented a digital managing editor position. So I have someone who's completely in charge of overseeing our website. So he's pretty much our go-to tech guy. And he will design the long forms. He was in charge of designing the new website. So that's really helped. But besides that, we've really put an emphasis on social media this past year too. We just hit 43,000 Twitter followers and just broke 20,000 Facebook likes. We're really focusing on that. And one way we're doing that is we're using more Google Forms, more surveys to reach our readers. Right now we're going through a bracket of who is Penn State's all-time greatest athlete, so people can go online and vote. And then we have another story we're working on for mental health for people who've experienced our counseling and psychological services at Penn State. So we're really focusing on gaining readers that way because freshmen coming into Penn State really aren't used to picking up a newspaper, so we're trying to reach them in the platforms they're most comfortable with. But besides that, like they're saying, we get the majority of our revenue from print. So we're trying to balance it a little more by having online-only content with breaking news desks, so constantly having stories up online every day, but we're still trying to figure out advertising revenue for that as well.
As is everybody, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the same for us. The one thing that I think was the biggest change was my freshman year. I remember so clearly we would flow all of our articles into the paper, and then we would publish the articles online at the end of the night. So, if you happened to be looking at your computer at 1 o'clock in the morning, you would see an article that was published, but otherwise, we missed those hits that we could have been getting during the night time. So since then, we started publishing online first, earlier in the day, so that when people are getting out of class, they're looking at our website and actually seeing new content, and doing a lot more on Twitter and Facebook to engage our readers, but then a lot of the same stuff that you guys have been seeing.
Does anybody here, in terms of like the kind of content you have online, what Lauren was saying before, different stuff that wouldn't necessarily be in print, there's different, besides reporting, there's opinion and commentary and blogs and all that stuff, and the snarkier things perhaps that online is notorious or famous for hosting. Is anybody looking at more of that specifically?
We used to have blogs. that were
Or
very,
blogs.
very successful.
Yeah.
But then as we became more present online and did a lot more breaking stuff online, people didn't seem to be as interested in our blogs anymore. So they've very much been scaled back. I don't know if it's the same for you guys. But we do have a lot of like photo stories that we have online, in particular, multimedia stories like that.
Yeah,
okay.
we do a lot of photo galleries online. We've tried blogs before. Some have done better than others. We found that when we have staffers who go abroad, they do abroad columns that we throw online, and people really like seeing those because everyone likes reading about study abroad. So that's been really successful for us. But we've tried other little blogs like food blogs and fashion blogs, things like that just haven't really played out well for us. So we're still experimenting with the snarkier side of things, I guess you could say.
Lauren, what was that new format we were talking about the other day? Yeah, are you comfortable talking about that yet, or
I don't remember.
the news analysis?
Oh yeah, so
thing?
at my paper, the news editors and myself have been talking about starting kind of a series of news analysis pieces, kind of written by the editors who can take a step back and analyze what's happened in the past week or so in a more abstract way that kind of takes what's happening that week and puts it in context for readers. So we felt like that was something that can live online because it is more of a broad scope and can take a different form from the other stories that we're typically writing.
You know, so I mean, the theme that unites all these questions I'm trying to throw out is, you know, the challenges of getting readers' attention in an era, really, a culture era where there are so many choices out there, and you can pick up your phone, be completely distracted, and never come back to, the college paper. So trying new things. One other thing I was wondering was how often any of you, the papers, feel that it's a good idea to have coverage outside the core university to take account of the surrounding community, and whether the mix of campus versus off-campus coverage has changed at all in the last, year or two.
So,
I mean, you guys are in the city, maybe that matters. I don't know.
to sort of dovetail off the previous question, I mean, we don't have the staff to do blogs. What we do have, especially online, is we've been moving in a lot with long form articles, which is the fancy Web 2.0 way to say a regular old article in 1990. But long form articles, they involve like multimedia integration. They involve you have pictures, you have fancy ways you scroll down the page. You hope to God it works on mobile, but it used to take us a month to get one up. Now we got the new, Snowball integration. We can do it in a day. How was I going to link this to off
Covering
campus?
the community.
Covering the community. Okay.
We'll find a way.
That was okay. So our best long forms were about our students going out into the community and beyond, and making a difference. What was the one? I think Julia wrote it. No.
Which article?
Which long form?
Danielle.
Yeah, Danielle wrote the one. That was about the women's rifle team, wasn't it?
That was about the 3 women who went to medical school, and then we had the one with the students who went to France, I think, for their big race.
Sailing team.
I rely a lot on my staff.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so I mean, regarding the balance between covering the school and covering the community at large, we especially since we've started getting advising again, we've been under a lot of pressure to cover things which are more related to the school. But you can't divorce the campus from the community, because then you get University of Pennsylvania in the 1980s.
1980s.
Yeah.
No, she said 1980s, she said.
Yeah. Go 2 steps off campus. Woo!
So for us, Well, that's an interesting time to ask this question for us because we actually have 4 staffers in Iowa right now covering the caucuses. So that was something that we felt strongly was important for us to cover. First of all, because we have an alum in the race who happens to be a really amazing person for writing stories about Donald Trump. So that was definitely a big reason why we went, but it wasn't just about that. You know, I think we felt like this is a great opportunity as college students to travel and be a part of something really important, and that's going to affect us for a long time and affect college students here, and we can go to this and cover the issues that we know students on this campus want to hear about and show them kind of a window of a world that maybe probably most people here can't get to or don't know about. So that was really important to us, and I'm really happy that we're doing that. We're also going to New Hampshire and South Carolina in the upcoming weeks. But I mean, outside of covering the presidential race, we also cover city politics and our relationship with the West Philadelphia community. And I think we're always walking a line with that, trying to figure out like how Penn related is this. Often like our best stories are the ones that involve student life. Things that are happening right on campus. So it's striking the right balance and finding those stories that are a little bit off campus but are still important to our community. And sometimes they're just stories that we feel like we have to write because we think they're important to students and are going to affect students, even though they're happening off of our campus.
For anyone who might have visited Penn State, there's one road that divides campus and downtown State College. State College really thrives off the university. It's a very small college town. Once you leave State College, it's pretty much mountains and trees. So we put a lot of emphasis on kind of blending the lines between campus and downtown news. One of our most important areas of coverage is sexual assault, and the majority of sexual assaults happen for us off campus. So we make sure to send students push notifications about sexual assaults that are happening downtown and then details about that. But because it's such a small town, we also put a lot of coverage on our local businesses, what's going on there, what resources are available to students downtown, in addition to big crime stories too. And a lot of students also, the majority of students live off campus as well, so keeping people updated on what the borough council is doing, what they might be passing that could affect, students' bills for utilities and water prices. So it's, like she was saying, it's a balance. We focus a lot more on on-campus events, but we think it's really important to focus on downtown State College as well. So our Metro staff is pretty much dedicated to downtown.
A lot of the same at the Prince. We also have an alum who's in the presidential race. Ted Cruz graduated from Princeton, and as the governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie is a member of Princeton's Board of Trustees. So we've been following both of them. But from New Jersey, we haven't left New Jersey to venture out to any other states, unfortunately. So we've been keeping an eye on that. We also have a number of alumni who are doing interesting things, whether they're famous or just interesting people. We like to profile our alums and do Q&As with them. But also Princeton the university is very much in the center of the town, literally, because it's right on the main road. But also a lot of things that happen in the town apply to the university, and a lot of things that happen at the university apply to the town. And a lot of the professors who work there live in town, so we very much cover stuff that's happening in the town in our paper as well.
Let me go back to something that Justin said much earlier. One little passing line that sort of jumped out at me, and it's going to set up my next bigger question for everybody. You said something like, now, see if I can quote it correctly, now that you're getting advising again, that there is pressure to do more stuff on campus. Explain what you mean like an advisor, administration advisor?
So,
who's that? What is this pressure we're talking about?
oh boy, let's talk about the past year of the Triangle. Our previous advisor left sometime about a year and a month ago or
But
so.
what do you mean by advisor?
Well, you got a faculty advisor if you want to have a student organization.
Okay.
Right? We're still somehow under the university. We're independent in our funding. We're not independent in our organization necessarily. So we had essentially no advisor for something like probably 9 months, because no one was technically qualified to do it. You needed a professor who wasn't an adjunct, and none of them taught journalism. We've managed to fix this in the last, because everyone's adjuncts now. You don't have any real professors. But in the past 3 months, we fixed this, and we're getting recommendations. Why don't you cover this? Why don't you cover that? Why don't we cover this thing? Why you can't say this? Now the nice thing is, a lot of this, it's advice. You can ignore it. But people always, they come to you and they'll say, we should be doing this, we shouldn't be doing that. It's still very ignorable, which is nice, but the words are there.
They're working the refs for the next game, basically.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was one of the big things I wanted to ask everybody. We're talking about newspapers being independent, but what I'm wondering is whether anybody feels that, I don't know if it's how measurable this is. We're in this era now. Anything that you write, because of the digital reach, anything that any newspaper writes can be picked up by any alum anywhere in the country, whatever. The stakes are higher now for ratings and donors and what you get, what you're fundraising and how you're ranked. And so what I'm wondering, I guess, is whether any of you feel that your respective administrations, by whatever means, have made it, let's say, more challenging to actually function independently in terms of, when you're just doing news gathering or, getting information, not having barriers thrown up in front of you. And I don't know whether anybody feels that that's increased or not increased, but I'm thinking, there are more gatekeepers now for information. Generally in society. I'm wondering if college newspapers have the same problem.
Well, I know for us, we definitely run into the issue of, I think people are very self-conscious about themselves being in print or online on a personal level and also on an organizational level. So I think even with students, we'll run into students who don't want to be quoted on really minor things, like not even when we're trying to report on a topic that may be controversial. So I think there's kind of this aversion to having your name out there because you know that it's going to stick around for a long time, and people are aware that you can Google search and your name will come up in that article that was written years ago. So I think that's one thing, but also in terms of the university itself, I think the university also knows this, and they know that, a story about a university mishandling something or being non-transparent about something can easily get picked up by other organizations and go anywhere. And I think the stakes are high in terms of funding. They're really nervous about where their money's coming from and who's reading these articles. Are they the people who are donating to the university? So I think, the stakes are definitely higher, and they know that things can live online forever. It's not just going to go away like it used to.
So do you feel more pushback maybe than, I know you haven't been, you're the new editor, but you've been at the paper for a while. So do you feel that the pushback is measurably higher than it was, say, a year or two ago? About whatever comparison.
I wouldn't say necessarily like a year or two ago, but from what I know about our history reporting at Penn, I definitely believe that there's more middlemen in the process. Yeah. So I know that, decades ago, students would just go to the door of the president and try and interview him, just wait until he came out of his house, or they had his phone number and would just call him up for a comment. Now we go through a middleman who filters our questions and that we want to ask our president, sets up meeting times for us. So it's not just like we can access any administrator when we want to or feel like we need to. So I think definitely And I feel like that's across the board at universities and probably in businesses as well. Having more people filter the communications because they know that, there's a lot of media out there and it can really harm them if the wrong thing gets out.
Yeah. At Penn State, it's kind of interesting because it's a little bit opposite for us. 4 years ago, if you tried to talk to Penn State administration during the Sandusky scandal, you couldn't get comment from anyone. But since then, 2 presidents later, our president has put a really big emphasis on being more open to students. So we've been able to talk to him a lot more, ask him more pressing questions. Sometimes we have to go through a spokesperson to kind of tell them what we want to ask, but he's very open to meeting with people. Whereas during Sandusky, we literally cannot get an administrator on the record to talk about anything since it was about a university cover-up. But right now, we have a really good relationship with our administration. The biggest thing that we need to do as a paper is sift through PR. So Penn State will send us all kinds of story ideas like, oh, you should write about this awesome alum who's doing this, which can sometimes be cool pieces, but a lot of time it's a PR push. So we put a lot of emphasis on keeping the university accountable. Last year, there was a whole national scandal about a fraternity that was posting photos of naked, unconscious women on a Facebook page. New York Times picked it up. It was a great time. But and our president didn't say anything for 3 days about it. So we kind of called him out in an editorial, and he finally came out, and that's when the university finally started making decisions. So I thought that was a good example of how newspapers can really hold universities accountable, especially when they're trying to kind of hold back and kind of forcing them to say something about it. So, but it's definitely been better since the Sandusky fallout for sure at Penn State.
For Anna Talks, just we're going to go over questions in just a minute, so right after Anna. So if you've got stuff forming in your heads, you will soon have a moment to verbalize them. Go ahead.
I'll keep this quick then. When I was a freshman in the fall, the editor-in-chief at that time instituted a no email quotes policy. So at that point, you could email a administrator, a faculty member, a student asking for an interview, but you wouldn't say, here, like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And then get an email back from them. It had to be in person or on the phone. And there was a bit of pushback at that point. From my understanding, before then, I was a freshman when this happened, but there was a lot of concern about whether the responses were actually coming from the administrator that it was supposed to be coming, or whether a spokesperson was writing the response, and also the degree to which a person would actually explain their response. And you could ask follow-up questions. You couldn't necessarily do that in an email. So since then, it was a little rocky at first, but now a lot of administrators and faculty members will speak to us over the phone, in person, and we don't have to filter our questions through anybody. Sometimes they'll try to get more of a gist of what we're going to be asking them. So we'll say, obviously we tell them what the article is about ahead of time, but I think a lot of them are afraid of gotcha questions. And so we try hard not to play gotcha, like they know what the story is about. And because of that, a lot of them are much more willing to talk to us now. And we've had our fair share of controversies over the past few years, and they've been very good about not hiding behind spokespeople. Sometimes they do that, but
I was going to, for a lot of people, gotcha questions are really just good questions that need to be asked, and then they call them gotcha questions. Let's take questions. Speaking of questions, gotcha questions or not, here we go.
You guys are students as well as journalists, and your jobs are hard, but you're also learning. Do you find that the scrutiny, particularly now when every national organization is like falling all over itself to like uncover the next crazy thing college students are doing these days, do you think the scrutiny makes you nervous too? Like, oh, I don't necessarily want to have this story, or we don't necessarily want to try to experiment too hard with how we're going to write this or do this, because that the Atlantic is going to talk about how sensitive or not sensitive you are, or someone's going to tweet it a million times and your writers are going to be threatened online, or like all of these things that can happen fallout-wise to you as undergraduates who are still kind of experimenting with how it works. That's any of you.
Anybody can take it.
I already got a job lined up after college. I don't care what people
Lucky
think.
you. This has been rough for us sometimes because I don't know about you guys, but if a student gets arrested for something, or if there's a controversy with a student group or something like that, we will cover it. I mean, there are a lot of other local papers, and they also cover the same arrest, but if we cover it, then a lot of students will comment on the article saying, how could you do this? Like, this is your peer. Like, why would you put them out there like that? And it's really difficult to reconcile the two identities of journalist and student. So in that sense, our independent status in terms of funding with the university and recognition with the university also comes into play with the students because we have to be independent in that case as well. It's been difficult.
Well, it's like you're a small town, I think for college newspaper editors, you're almost like a small town newspaper editor in a way where everybody knows everybody else, and you're bumping up against the people every day that you now also have to cover.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think the scrutiny is definitely something that you think about, but it's the sort of thing where you can't go halfway. You can't say, like, well, I'm just a student journalist, so, like, these rules don't apply to me, because I think nowadays with content living online and kind of being available to anyone, anywhere, all journalists and really anyone who puts anything on the internet have the same responsibility to be, accurate and attentive to what the story is and what's going on. So yeah, we're still learning and we're gonna make mistakes, but so do professional organizations, and I think we have to take that responsibility really seriously.
Yeah, I agree. We get a lot of requests from students who might have gotten arrested for content removal requests, which we have a policy that unless it's false information, we won't take it down, we'll correct it. So people get really mad at us for that, but we say it's a learning process. Part of being a journalist is growing a thick skin. So we have freshman reporters who come in who are really scared when they get that first mean email. But by the end of your senior year, everyone's like, I don't care what you think. Like, the story is right. I know it's right. So it's kind of a learning process there, and I think it really helps prepare staffers to deal with that. So we get a lot of angry comments anytime we have a story that is about Joe Paterno, something bad about him, or anything relating to the Sandusky case really gives us a headache. But we deal with it on a day-to-day basis, and it's just kind of something you have to deal with when you have an audience that feels passionately about something.
I'd say the thick skin is very, very important. Guy I personally knew while I was editor-in-chief was nabbed for possession and distribution of child pornography. We had to run an article about that. That's like it doesn't matter if, like, what they think, especially when it's like, what do you think? You have to be objective. You have to cover it. This is out in the news. You gotta write an article about this. So, we made sure there was full disclosure of everything.
You have to, I tell students that all the time. You need two things to go into journalism. You need a healthy ego, and I don't mean ego in a pejorative sense, but you need a healthy ego because you're dying to tell people things, and a thick skin goes with it. When I was at the college paper, there was an interview published somewhere. There was a famous talk show host, long gone now, named Johnny Carson. He used to have the Tonight Show, and he gave an interview once in the magazine interview. And I cut this out, and I had this up in my office at my college paper. And he said, I still have it, as a matter of fact. He said, I really like what I do, and I hope you do too. But if you don't, I really couldn't care less. And that's probably a little crasser than you'd want the general public to know. But you have to have, that because there are decisions you make that you're always going to get pushback on. But you're right. I mean, it's great. You do develop it over time with repetition. Who else wants to? I saw some other hands.
A couple of you mentioned that you guys have board of trustees or board of overseers or some sort of like larger body that isn't like staffers of the newspaper. What's the relationship between them and the university and them and you, and like how does that whole system work?
So we have a board of trustees with 10 people, one non-voting member who's our general manager. He's a professional staffer. There are 5 students and 4 alumni on the board, which is on purpose to have a student majority. So the students are 2 at-large members and then 3 automatic members who are the editor-in-chief, president, and business manager. And then the 4 alumni are people in journalism and also business. And we deal with the longer term decisions, things that will affect the company for at least probably 2 years out. So things like cutting print or deciding on our budget, I'll have to go through the Board of Trustees.
We have something very similar. We call it a board of directors, though, where it's the same thing. So I have a seat on the board for a year. Our business manager has a seat for a year too, and it's pretty much just larger things like print production costs, revenue, talking about stuff like that. And our professional staff and board of directors has absolutely no say in what we publish. So our general manager can be like, oh, I don't know if I really like that story, but at the end of the day, it's the student's decision on what we publish. It's a very similar structure.
Yeah, we have a similar structure as well, except our board is much larger. I think we have about 20 alumni, both from the business side and the editorial side, who are still in journalism, in finance, or in legal professions. And we meet with them 5 times a year. It's just the editor-in-chief and the business manager, and then the editor-in-chief emerita and the business manager emerita in the spring. And they really just give advice. So if we're dealing with a tricky story that might have to do with an arrest or something, I would call up one of the lawyers on the Board of Trustees and say, do you have any advice for how to handle this? They give ideas if they have them for stories, but that doesn't really happen that often. It's more about talking about long-term decisions and that sort of thing.
Oh, I'm sorry, Justin.
Yeah.
You go
I was
ahead.
about to say, we got some kids in a room who meet each Monday around this time. That's the full balance of our long-term planning. Hopefully, some of them stay on for more than a quarter.
So, what do you think is the most unique aspect of your particular newspaper?
It's a hard question to answer because I only really know my paper, so I'm not really sure.
I think one of the things that's unique about the Drexel Triangle is, of course, we have we don't have a journalism major. I don't think we have very many people on the paper who are looking for going into journalism as a career. Our news team is overwhelmingly Alex, your bio. Annie here is chem. I'm a civil engineer with a concentration in construction management. Ask me about yelling at people. And there's not a lot of full-time people who are interested in journalism as a career. It's a labor of love, but ultimately it's a hobby. We don't have full-time people at all. We don't have the office staffed constantly. We're not producing every night. It's not how can I phrase this? Yeah, I know the staff is here too. We're in it because we're in it because we love doing it. It's not necessarily a huge resume builder for us.
Well, actually, let me ask these guys here. Roughly speaking, what percentage of the students that come through your papers are pointing toward some kind of journalism career? Just off the top, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20, 1 out of 3?
Yeah, I'd say maybe a quarter or maybe even less want to go into journalism. But I think, maybe it changes over the course of being in college. But yeah, it's definitely not the majority.
Uh-huh. But they're in there for, they're first of all, polish their writing skills. It's exciting. It's different.
Plus, we have, it's not just reporting. We have production departments and also a whole business staff.
Shannon, sorry, go ahead.
We have a staff of about 120 people, and I'd say about 50 to 60% of them are going into journalism. So we have a pretty big college of comms. So we have a lot of people who might be broadcast journalism. We have a lot of print and digital journalism. But then we also have a lot of visual So a lot of our photogs are photojournalists. But then we also have really random majors where a lot of our photographers are also like engineering majors, things like that. But my board of editors, I'd say all of them are going into journalism in some capacity. So it's nice to have that.
We definitely, I don't think it's that large of a percentage for us. We have a very large staff, but I think if people are interested in going into journalism, they'll be on the news staff or the opinion staff. And there are about 25, 30 people in each of those. And I would say maybe like 5 to 10 want to go into journalism. I don't know how many actually do end up going into journalism, but it's a small percentage.
Yeah, I could add my comments. I was going to say that, I don't think you guys are probably worried about the death of print because, students I see who are interested in journalism they just kind of figure that, however the market's changing, they're going to find their way in the new forms. More questions, at least those of you who have not walked out.
They got to go around the meeting.
Right there. Jill.
Hey, so I have a question that kind of dovetails off of what you have just been discussing, which is your students, you run this paper, but you're also working with other students who are running the paper. How do you motivate them? I was in Lauren's position last year as editor-in-chief of the DP, so I know how difficult of a question that is to answer. I'm interested to hear if you pay at all, and if you don't, like the DP doesn't, then what are you doing to get them motivated and to work an ungodly number of hours while also being a student?
I think we can afford to reimburse a SEPTA token, and that's about it. How do you motivate students? Well, I tell you one thing. Make sure you're playing off their strengths. Like our managing editor, who just left, is a graphic designer. He was the reason he stayed on. I would say very definitely is because we finally redesigned the entire newspaper after, we checked last week, 7 years of having only 2 possible front page layouts. You gotta say, okay, you're good at doing this, you like doing this, go and do it. That's pretty much all you really have to do. You don't have to yell at people, you don't have to do pep talks, you just have to let people do what they want to do, and you gotta make sure you have the right people to do the things that need to get done. That's pretty generic, but
I was a big fan of pep talks and motivational speaking. So a lot of the people at my paper were doing it because they wanted to do it. A lot also were doing it because when they came in as freshmen, they found a good community of people that they wanted to stay with. And as junior seniors, when they were editors, they wanted to make that community for other people and continue the legacy of the community.
Do you pay anything for reporting or editors?
No, we don't.
We offer grant checks up to 15 each semester, so that's kind of motivating. So the more you write, the more eligible you are for a grant check. And editors are guaranteed a grant check as well, so that kind of motivates people if they want to eventually get into an editing position. You can get some money for that. But we also motivate our staffers just by saying that if you want to move up on the Collegian or if you want to have a big editing position, you have to show it when you're younger. So that motivates people, and then really it kind of weeds the people who don't want to be there out. So we have retain the majority of our staff each semester, but sometimes people are just like, I don't really want to do this. Like, I don't want to be writing 3 articles a week. So they'll eventually leave. But we always tell them in our meetings that the more you invest in maybe a long form story or your feature story, you're going to be more proud of that clip, and that'll help with internships as well. Where we've had people in our office get internships this year at the Inquirer in Philadelphia or New York Times. We had someone get that as well, and a few people through the Dow Jones Fund. So we always tell them that you have to be putting in the time and effort to be rewarded those big internships. That kind of motivates them. And like I said, the rest too don't really want to be there, kind of weed themselves out along the way.
Yeah, it's a self-selecting process, If you feel the passion, then you're going to do it. Mm-hmm. That's the short answer, I think, what you guys are saying. More questions? We have over here.
Yeah, I was wondering, so earlier, like maybe 10 minutes ago, you were talking about thick skin and objectivity. And I was wondering how the kind of common journalistic idealization of those characteristics affect or transform when dealing with difficult and polarized topics such as like race, sexual assault. So, I mean, for us recently, there's the racist non-payment of pilots by the University of Pennsylvania. You mentioned the Sandusky rape scandal. And I was wondering if you could talk about like some of the ethics of being unbiased, or what kind of ways unbiasedness transforms in those difficult moments or sensitive moments.
Well, I think it seems to me like it's generally accepted now that objectivity doesn't exist, and that's a pretty accepted thing, I think, throughout journalism. But, you know, it's still something to strive for in being as unbiased as you could possibly be. And I think in terms of how it changes when covering sensitive topics, I think it's really just being really aware of how you're phrasing things and how you're going about your reporting, making sure to ask extra questions of like, you know, how do I refer to this concept? And so I think it's just a matter of really sensitivity at the end of the day, and taking that extra step to ask those questions that may not have been the first ones that came to mind. But I think, you know, subjects like race and sexual assault, like they're very touchy subjects. They can really get at people, and they're really subjective too, especially like race. Everyone has their own experience with race. So I think it's a matter of just portraying everyone's experience in the best way that you can, without inserting outside things. But obviously, at the same time, we as a paper can't take a stance on those things.
Yeah, going off that, issues for us at Penn State, particularly sexual assault and mental health, where it's really hard to be kind of objective on that side. 'Cause no one really wants to reach out to a source and be like, oh, no, I think sexual assault's a good thing. But when we're dealing with more criminal cases, so if a student's charged with sexual assault, we really try to make sure that we're being objective by talking to his attorney, or when we were covering Sandusky, more reaching out to his defense attorneys to make sure we kind of had that other side representative of them. But I think being sensitive is really important, especially with issues like mental health. Covering mental health on campus is a big thing for us right now, and just reaching out to students who have been affected and who think that the university does more, but also getting the university side on it as well. But yeah, definitely saying more sensitive to those topics because they're sensitive topics in general.
Yeah, same.
Any others? Right here?
Thanks. I wanted to ask this question more about the Daily Princetonian. You talked about transitioning to publishing online first. I was wondering how you kind of changed your whole production cycle to fit that online first, and also how do you think that's affected your print product and the amount of people who are looking at you guys in print as well?
Our print product definitely lives in the dining hall, I think. People read the paper over their breakfast, and most of the papers are gone by 11:30 in the morning. That being said, it was an interesting transition. I was a sophomore, so I wasn't in a leadership position necessarily when we were moving towards it, but it was more deciding that we're not going to wait until, you know, the next day to tell people that something happened, that we found out about the admissions numbers, or we found out that there's this breaking story. We made a listserv for the editors, so if there's a breaking story, the news editor would send out the edited version of the story to the listserv, and then, you know, the copy editor would copy edit it, and then the editor-in-chief would read it, and then we would just go ahead and publish it online and promote it on social media. And then we would publish it in the paper the next day, but we weren't saying, oh, we'll wait until tomorrow for people to see it. We were saying, we want people to see this now.
And your stuff that isn't breaking is usually just published along with...
Yeah, so the stuff that isn't breaking, it's published at night whenever it's finished being edited. So it's usually around 9 o'clock at night or whatever. That's when articles are being published online, which is, still, relatively late, I guess. But in the life of a college student, I don't know if you would agree with this. I mean, nobody's asleep at 9 o'clock. So people are still looking at their Facebook, still looking, refreshing our website saying, oh, there's new news. Oh, look, this is happening. And sharing our stuff on Facebook.
Yeah,
but before we lost most of that because we would be publishing articles at the end of the night at 1 o'clock in the morning, And at that point, if people were still awake, it was because they were cramming for something. They weren't necessarily refreshing pages.
No, I was just going to say, you have to, readers now, young readers, they expect,
Yeah, exactly.
they expect to see something immediate in the moment. Nobody, the idea of waiting for anything about anything is over. And, so you have no choice except but to chase those readers as best you can. More questions? We have time for a few.
So I work for the Haverford and Bryn Mawr Bico News, and we are just actually starting the process of moving online, or trying to get more readers online, because I think we only put out 2 print articles a semester, and that's not what happens. But how have you guys worked, besides like social media, or even through social media, to really make sure that you build your online presence? Because like your views are very impressive.
I don't know about for you guys, but a lot of our views come from people clicking over from Facebook or Twitter. So a lot of promoting our online presence has really been sharing things a lot on social media, and everybody in the paper, when they first come, are told to invite all of their friends on Facebook to like the page. So the more people that are liking the page, the more people who see our posts. And staffers share their articles, then their friends see it, they click over, etc.
Yeah, similarly with that, my digital managing editor runs around the office at least once a day yelling at people to tweet their stories out. And yeah, he says it all the time. So people, not only can reporters start gaining a following on Twitter, but so they're reaching more of an audience. So we put a lot of emphasis on our social media. Within the past 2 years, we developed an app as well. And we finally just started being able to send push notifications where you can swipe into a story. So that's something we're really exploring now. So for instance, our hockey and basketball teams both just played at Madison Square Garden. So we sent a push notification right into the story after the game for that. And for bigger breaking news, we'll do that as well. We're starting to see a lot of more people going into our app that way. But really, it's a lot of self-promotion and kind of putting our product in people's faces and on their phones.
Yeah, I think also beyond just pushing out content, it's also about like building a brand. So one thing that we're just starting up right now, another form of social media is Snapchat. Our reporters in Iowa right now are Snapchatting their trip on the campaign trail. Even just things like during the snow day, taking photos of people around the quad and everything that's happening. It's just another way to connect with readers and show people that where they are, and just get them to connect with us in different ways.
I'm about 90 years old, so we still have one deadline, which is midnight on Thursday, to get into the print edition. We do have social media. It gets Facebooked or tweeted out over the next week. The content it all comes out on Friday over the course of the day, but it's not particularly fresh, I will admit. Our big issue is, we want to do online first, but we don't know how to hold people accountable for that yet, because Drexel, we got these 10-week terms. People are going crazy. So it's been a struggle. There's been a lot of false starts with online first for us, but they've all, crashed and burned within when you have midterms from week 3 to the end of the term.
Who's got the time to?
Yeah, who's got the
vote,
time to
right?
finish everything?
Yeah, what Lauren was saying about putting stuff out on Snapchat, because somebody else is putting stuff on Snapchat if you're not there to compete with it. To quote a famous alum of Princeton, as a matter of fact, former Senator Bill Bradley of New Jersey famously said, because he was a basketball player, if you're not out there practicing, someone else is. And so you have to proactively compete, for people's attention. Do we have any more questions? One, two.
Are there alternative papers or publications on your campus? And if so, what is your relationship to those alternative papers?
We have a big competitor who literally gives me heart attacks. They're called Onward State, and they're an online-only blog, so they're a snarky version of us. They do the more like fluff pieces, like to say like they do a segment called Drunk, Sober, High. Well, they'll send a staffer drunk, one sober, and one high to events, and they'll quote them.
Nice.
Now that will get a readership, right?
That helps them. They sent reporters like that to a children's show last year on Penn State's campus, so that got them into some trouble. But they really give us a run for our money with some stuff because they get the clicks. They do a lot of more clickbait type stories. So they really compete with us for that, and they have 80,000 and 90,000 Facebook, or not Facebook, but Twitter followers and like 70,000 Facebook likes. We don't know how they do it. So they are definitely our biggest competitor. We definitely compete a little bit with the local newspaper too, the Center Daily Times, but definitely not as much as Onward State. So they really do cause a lot of stress for us, but we beat them a lot to bigger breaking stories, so they more focus on the fluffier pieces.
Does Onward State cover you at all? You know, like as an institution, and write about what your media output is?
They like to call us out for stuff on social media, but usually it's dumb lighter stuff. Last year they wrote a story because our editor-in-chief didn't want to do a crate race against their staff because our editor-in-chief was just like, oh, we can't do that. And they wrote about it and thought it was really funny, but everyone was just kind of like, all right.
We have a weekly paper they do more features and longer opinion articles. So the only way that we compete with them really is through our opinion section and through our features, like our weekly feature section. A lot of the writers want to write for both us and for them. And it's tricky because a lot of the time we want their good stuff in our paper. So it's hard when staffers, try to do both. They have a column called Prince Watch, where they will say, here is an article or a column that was written in the Daily Princetonian, that's our nickname, and they will critique us and say how we should have done it better. But other than that, they're not super competitors. There's also a group on our campus of freelancers who will write for papers that are out of town about what's happening on our campus. They don't write that frequently, but they have a blog and they will write stuff as well. I don't think that people on campus necessarily think that the blog is the first place to go to, but we still act like we have competitors even if we don't necessarily.
Yeah, I'd say on our campus, I wouldn't necessarily say that on campus we have competitors because I think a lot of the publications on campus are more niche. Like something like Pen Appetit is all about food and The Walk is all about fashion. So it plays to a certain group, so you can kind of read both and get different content. But I think we're also competing with the local papers in some sense. Sometimes the Philadelphia Inquirer or Daily News can get a story that we want, so we want to make sure we beat them to it in those cases. And I think having access to administrators by being in the positions that we're in really helps us get to those stories right away.
I'd say, we have competition. There's the university-sponsored paper, Drexel Now. It's propaganda. No one reads it. There's, what else? There's the Odyssey Online, which I'm sure has been popping up at most campuses. Ours crashed and burned pretty quickly, so that's gone. I'll tell you one thing. We're getting a new distribution contract soon. We'll be able to have outdoor newspaper racks. And I'm putting them at the Wawa and Fresh Grocer right next to yours.
It's a tight neighborhood.
Yeah. So you're looking at your competition.
You guys should put a wall up on 34th Street. Have Trump build it right there.
And alumni.
Anybody else? I was just going to, I think we're probably going to wrap it. Let me just go right down the table. If there's anything we haven't covered at all, I'll just frame the question this way. And if you want to reiterate, it's okay. Looking ahead, looking forward, what would you say is the number one challenge that your paper faces? And it could be something we've already talked about. You can just recap briefly. Or if it was something new that we missed. The number one challenge going forward, financially, journalistically, politically.
I'd say rebuilding. We lost a lot of infrastructure over the past 5 years. If you go back through the archives, which is something everyone should do, just to see what you've done in the past. We had a much larger newspaper 5 years ago. It was 30 pages instead of 12. We had much better relationships with the faculty and staff. We had much larger budget. We had we had more staff. We had a bigger production cycle. And everything kind of started to slowly fall apart over the past 5 years. And I can't put any one factor on it, but it seemed to happen abnormally fast. I mean, I can't say I've done anything super spectacular to improve that, apart from putting more pictures in, which seems to have gotten people picking up the paper. It's been rough. We've been rebuilding. I would characterize all that we've done over the past year and a half not so much as progress, but just trying to rebuild from where we were. We were looking at going completely out of business. Now we're looking at being able to print securely, financially, and once you're on your secure financial footing, only then can you really start to plan ahead. And planning ahead is difficult when people are rotating in and out every 3 months or so. We don't have an alumni board. We don't have long-term planning of any kind. We didn't have advising for a full year. Rebuilding has been the major challenge. And I'm glad because we have rebuilt a lot over the past year and a half, but there's a long way to go.
Yeah, I think for us, the main challenge is not that different from the challenge at any other print publication, and it's just figuring out how to excel online and monetize online. So I think a lot of times it's almost frustrating that we have to put out a print paper at the end of the night because there's so much more that you can do online. But at the end of the day, print is still valuable in terms of the fact that that's where most of our revenue comes from, and that's the case for most newspapers. So it's figuring out how can we balance the products that we have, and how can we move online in a way that will keep us financially afloat.
Yeah, I'd say that's the same for us too. Print circulation for us has gone down the past few years, so it's kind of figuring out a way to either figure out how to get print circulation to go back up, or figuring out how to monetize our online products. So it's pretty tough for us right now to kind of figure out what direction we're going to go in, but figuring out what our readers want, best serving it to them in print and online, and maybe deciding in the future if we're going to cut back on days, or just kind of seeing what we can do to stay financially stable.
Yeah, I think online is definitely the future of journalism. One thing that's particular at Princeton, I think, is making sure that we have a large enough staff who can churn out a paper every day, because as you guys know, daily is hard.
I don't know.
I never did.
But it's hard, and especially in a time when, it's definitely so much easier to produce a paper now than it was 30 years ago. But it seems like the number of people that you can convince, because of our shorter attention spans and all of that, number of people that you can convince to devote so much of their time to one activity seems to be harder and harder. So that's definitely one challenge in getting people to actually produce journalism for us and in general, I think.
Well, I learned a couple new things tonight, at least. I didn't know what snowball integration was, but it had something to do with the weather. So I appreciate it. I think I came from you guys, so I appreciate that. But I think we should give a hand to the people who keep the passion going.
And thank you so much